Hey everybody, this is Sue Kramer from PSIA AASI Eastern Division, and welcome to the fourth webinar of the fitness series. And tonight we're so happy and pleased to have Candace Cresci and Josh Hagen and Greg Fatigate. We are experiencing a little bit of outer space trouble. Don't know if you're experiencing it on your end as well, but tonight might be an abbreviated evening, just to give you a heads up. So Josh Hagen, you can see that his space is there, but we can't see his face. And also Greg Fatigate, who's our snowboarder, is joining us via phone, but we can't see him either. But nonetheless, we're going to go ahead with our program. And a few announcements to make before we get started, which is to thank Karen and Don Haringa for their help behind the scenes, and also Angelo Ross for his help. These guys have been putting in so many hours to getting this webinar series going for you. I hope that you've been working out a little bit more than you were before, smarter, and more. And remembering that there will be a survey and a link to this recorded version that will be sent out in the next week. Within the next week, it may be a few extra days because we might not be able to show Josh's video today, but we will add it to the recording. So we are going to be watching for sure. Candace's, there he is. Josh from Maine. Good to see you.
Hi guys.
Hey.
Welcome everybody.
We're going to be watching Candace's video and then Greg's. And as you know by now, you can ask questions, and please do ask your questions of us, and we're happy to answer them. So without any further delay, I think we should start with Candace's, and this is a section on power. And before we start, actually, I'm going to ask Candace if you want to say something before we watch your video.
Hi, so I'm Candace Cresci, and I'm an ETS member. I'm a competitive CrossFit athlete. I'm into powerlifting and Olympic lifting, and I tried to translate that into the presentation tonight in a way that would be accessible for other people.
In this presentation, we're going to be going over how power can be used in skiing, some of my training, and exercises that I like to do. At the end, there'll be some time for question and answer. What is power? Power is defined as the ability to exert a maximal force in as short a time as possible, as in accelerating, jumping, and throwing implements. While strength is the maximal force you can apply against a load, power is proportional to the speed at which you can apply this maximal force. Power and strength work hand in hand to create explosive movement in athletes. Skiing places great power demands on many muscle groups, most notably on the quadriceps located at the front of your thighs and gluteal muscles of your bottom. During skiing, these muscles need to be able to generate large amount of force in relatively quick bursts to create the forces needed to turn and respond to changes in the terrain. As was discussed in detail in the endurance seminar, there are two primary types of muscle fibers, slow and fast twitch. Fast twitch muscle fibers are found in a higher density in muscles responsible for creating movement in the body and are recruited when the force demands needed for an activity are greater than what the slow twitch muscle fibers can produce. Fast twitch fibers reach peak force quickly and can therefore generate greater amounts of force than slow twitch. However, they quicker to fatigue. Strength and power training increases the number of fast twitch fibers recruited for a certain movement. Performing explosive power-based movements with weight or simply your own body weight will recruit greater levels of fast twitch fibers. In this segment, I'm going to go over some of the exercises I do to prepare for the ski season. Whenever possible, I try to mimic the dynamic requirements of skiing and therefore favor body weight and free weight activities over weight machines, such as leg press or leg extension machines found in gyms. When starting a workout program, especially one with weighted lunges and squats, it is advisable that you have your form checked by a physiotherapist or trainer to avoid injury from poor form or an imbalance. While skiing, the primary muscles used are the quads and glutes, as well as the hamstrings, hips, and abdominal muscles. Therefore, my preseason training focuses mainly on these muscle groups. I aim to start training 6 to 8 weeks prior to being on snow and work specific muscles 2 to 3 times per week. And here are some of the exercises. Squats, a compound movement that recruits multiple muscle groups, almost every muscle in your lower body and core, and joints, the hip and knee.
Stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Lower to a seated position until your thighs are slightly below parallel to the floor. Keep your heels grounded and your knees behind your toes. Focus on maintaining a strong core.
Trying to keep your legs from bowing out or collapsing inwards during a squat will help with the fundamental of controlling edge angles with inclination and inclination. Lunges. A single leg exercise performed either weighted or with body weight that works your hips, glutes, quads, hamstrings, core, and the muscles of your inner thigh.
Begin standing tall with feet hip width apart. Engage your core. Take a big step forward with your right leg, shifting your weight so your heel touches the floor first. Lower your body until your right thigh is parallel to the floor and your shin is vertical. Keep your knee from going past your toes. Press in to the right heel to drive back to the starting position. Repeat on the other side.
Maintaining balance during lunges helps the legs work independently and build strength needed to direct pressure while skiing. This helps with the fundamental direct pressure to the outside ski. Squat lunge complex.
To lengthen and strengthen muscles through negative contractions and to achieve more power and control while skiing. Repeat this complex 6 times with 15 to 30 seconds of rest between sets. Squats, 10 to 20 times. Lunges, 10 to 20 reps per side. Jumping lunges. Switch legs in the air. 10 to 20 reps for each leg. Jumping squats. Explode upwards and land softly, 5 to 10 reps.
Jumping and having the ability to land softly will help with the fundamental, regulate the pressure created by the ski-snow interaction. Front squats.
Helps with skiing upright and not collapsing upper body when skiing downhill. Performed with a heavy weight with low rep scheme. Hold a barbell, kettlebell, or odd object up near your collarbone and squat, keeping core tight and engaged with a straight back. Perform 6 sets of 4 to 6 reps.
Developing a strong core helps with mobility restrictions, and the mechanically sound position the front squat forces helps with overall better alignment of the ankles, knees, hips, and spine. This helps with the fundamental of keeping the center of mass over the base of support.
Lateral hops and tuck hold.
Of isometric and dynamic movements, this exercise will help improve stamina on the hill. Generally speaking, we do not hop down the mountain, but turn quickly on uneven surfaces. The goal of this exercise is to work on strength and quickness, not to get as high as possible in the air. With an athletic stance, jump laterally over an object, sandbag, weight, etc. Focus on being explosive in the jump and landing softly and rebounding into the next jump quickly. Repeat for 30 seconds, then drop into a squat or tuck position and hold for another 30 seconds. Focus on keeping your back flat and chest open. Rest for 15 seconds between rounds. Repeat 4 to 8 times or until you start to lose good form.
Maintaining balance while in motion helps train postural control. This helps with the fundamental, keeping the center of mass over the base of support. Russian twists.
Core specific builds and strengthens oblique muscles used in turning. Sit on the ground with knees and hips at a 90-degree angle. You can either use no weights or hold a plate, dumbbell, or odd object in front of your chest. Pick your feet off the floor. Engage your core and rotate your upper body to the right, reaching your hands to your right hip or touching the weight to the floor. Return to the center and repeat on the other side. 1 rep is a twist to each side. Aim for 3 rounds of 20 reps.
Creating strength in the obliques allows for better engagement of the muscles needed when going through turns. This helps with the fundamental control the skis rotation with legs rotation.
Hey, Candace, thank you so much for doing that. I think some of you might agree that there's so much information in that very short segment, and I advise you all to review it as many times as possible once we do release the link to you. There's a lot of stuff. Write down notes, take screenshots, okay? Candace does some really great demonstrations of the videos, and I think would be worthwhile to review them. And so with that, there's a bunch of questions, actually, Candace. And let's see, I'm going to see if I can pop them open. But okay. One of the questions is, how do you integrate cardio with what you're doing?
So the way I integrate cardio is I use it as a warm-up. Usually before I start a lifting program, I'll try to get some cardio, whether it is going for a bike ride, doing 500 meters on the rower just to get my heart rate up, or just going out and going for like a 1 mile jog at about a 10-minute mile pace, just something to get, the blood flowing, so I'm not just starting to lift with, my heart rate down.
Okay. And like in the endurance segment, we talked about working the anaerobic system and stuff. So I know that some people use powerlifting and that sort of thing to sort of satisfy that aspect of aerobic training. So is that what you do? So if you're doing like your aerobic warm-ups at that pace, then is that like higher intensity? Do you satisfy that through your lifting?
So with the lifting, personally, I work strength percentages. So I'll do a 5 to 6 week program where I'll do lower reps at a higher weight, and or I'll do more reps at a lower weight, and I'll program it that way, percentage based. So when I'm lifting heavy, the cardio burst, it's more like that power fast twitch on the body. And if I'm doing like maybe a barbell cardio where it's like a lighter weight but higher reps, that's when I can get my heart rate really up that way and sustain it longer.
That makes sense. Let's see, I have a couple of questions here. Yes, okay. So I've seen some video of you, Candace, where you've got like massive amounts of weights, massive amounts. And if I were to put that over my shoulders, I would crumple. So how does somebody figure out like a reasonable amount of weight to get the job done?
So the first thing that's most important is making sure that your range of motion is correct. I recommend, if you have access to it, starting, if you're going to do, like a back squat, to use a PVC pipe and just make sure, you can get full depth, your knees aren't bowing in or collapsing out, you're not breaking at the waist. And then from there, you can slowly start to add weight, whether you do it on a barbell or if you have odd objects in a front squat that you're holding up. I recommend adding 5 to 10 pounds at a time. Or sometimes, like as you were mentioning about the cardio, like I'll do stuff with a weight vest on, which adds about 14 to 15 pounds. So depending on where you're at, what your flexibility is, what your mobility is, Once that's dialed in, then you can start to add weight until it feels comfortable. And depending on what you're working, if you're looking to build strength or to get a cardio workout, you can make judgment calls, you know, like, all right, I'm going to do a 5x5 at a heavy weight versus, you know, I can do like 10 to 20 reps at this weight.
You mentioned that you compete with CrossFit, and a lot of people have opinions about CrossFit. And so my question is, how long have you been doing it? How long have you been working with the CrossFit, you know, routine and their progression? And do you recommend it for, you know, like an average instructor who wants to just be fit for the season ahead?
So I will say that it is something that I think, like anything else, it's as good as the coaching that you receive. So in theory, the programming is supposed to be infinitely scalable, and everybody who begins that sort of a program would go through what they call an on-ramp or an element, where you would be safely taught how to do the programming. I personally found that it was a great way to have eyes on me to make sure that what I was doing in the gym was safe and correct. And I do think that as long as you're working with, same with us, you know, a certified coach or somebody who's been trained, they'll be able to guide you to make sure that you're not going to injure yourself, to direct you into ways to scale things appropriately for your mobility or your fitness level. And I do think, like any other fitness program, it's a great thing to get involved in. And you know, the sense of community that it involves, it helps you stay accountable. And it's been nice because when all the gyms shut down during COVID, it allowed me to safely come up with programming to do for myself when I didn't have access to a gym or access to a trainer.
Personally, I've been a little scared of CrossFit. I think I heard too many horror stories, but I know that I know that there's several high level ed staff members who think very highly of CrossFit, and I'm glad to know that it can be effective as long as, you know, it's respected and followed. And like you said, the coaching, I think, is a huge aspect of that, right? All right. So another question is, all right. This is from Stephen Shaw, and it seems pretty specific to me, but I'm going to ask it. What's your opinion about using the Concept 2 rower for skiing prep? Does that make sense to you?
I do. I think that the rower, it's a great exercise. It works your entire body. And it's something that when you jump on it, you're like, oh, I'm just pulling, but you know, there's a technique to it. So if you're using your legs and your back and your abs, I mean, it's a total body workout, and all of that translates back to what we do on the hill. So I think it's great.
Cool. Stephen, I hope that answered your question. And here's another one. This one says, I also weight train all year and wanted to add rollerblading. Would you recommend rollerblading or another activity to weight training / cardio?
So rollerblading, I think, is great. It has that like foot to foot, and it's something that's a lot less impact on the body if you stay upright than running. So I think anything that gets your heart rate up and you enjoy, and it's something that you can get out and do, I think would translate very well to cardio and getting ready for the ski season and incorporating that into your weight training.
Yeah, I mean, I think that rollerblading is excellent because it is much more specific to, especially for skiing. You know, it's independent leg action, you're working inversion and eversion, and you're feeling a little bit more of the dynamics as you would in skiing. So another question that was not asked of anybody in the audience, but something that Candace actually came up in conversation with Angelo and myself, and that is, it was his observation that when you went for ETS, which was a little bit ago, you skied really well. You were a strong skier, and he said to me, he was like, Candace skied so well. She was such a strong skier, and it was very evident. And I was a selector for that, and so I can say, yes, Candace was a strong skier. So what can you share with everybody here about your routine, your choices that contributes to what you do on snow? And I will tell, if you all don't know Candace, Candace is around the same height as I am, which is to say that we're we're on the smaller side, we're on the smaller side, but she's a very strong skier. So with that.
So I've always been involved in sports and athletics. I played field hockey Division I in college. You know, it's always been something I've done, but I've always had a little bit of a self-esteem or believing in myself issue, I would say. So I do think that with the powerlifting and having to believe in yourself, because like when you power lift, you have to believe, you know, like you pull, you go. So I think part of it was the mental aspect of it, and part of it was being confident, like, yes, I can do this. So for me, like getting involved in, you know, like knowing like I can squat heavy, and that translated to I can ski bumps without fatiguing. Or, you know, if I'm doing like an Olympic lift, or I'm doing like clean and jerk, or if I'm doing a snatch, the confidence to have that much explosion and then catch it, I think translates to believing in myself when I'm like, all right, here's an intense line that I want to ski, and then doing it and just letting my body take over, because I do believe that, you know, I have the strength to do it, and that I've trained enough to be there, so I don't need to overthink it.
I think, well, thank you for that, for your honesty and for sharing. I think, you know, it gives a lot of us the confidence to know that we have the potential to reach our goals. And it doesn't mean that we don't just show up and say, hey, I can do this, but we actually have to think about the steps that it takes to get there, and to train, like the things that you're suggesting people do, what I've suggested, you know, all of us will help performance on snow. Absolutely. So here's one last question. David Bowd and Thomas Hart both asked about using a trampoline. Any thoughts about jumping on a small trampoline for training, up and down, side to side movements?
I feel like I should almost defer that to Josh. I think that's great. And there was one other question that came through that I kind of want to address. It was like the difference between power and strength. So while strength it's basically like how much you can lift. Power is a combination of how much you can lift, but also how quickly. So the difference between some of the exercises is the ability to load a little bit and to be able to react quickly. So with the jumping on a trampoline, the side to side, it's the same thing. You know, you're coming back and coming off of it quickly, and if you're able to move, that gets into a little of Josh's presentation with the agility side of things.
Yeah. Josh, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I would just like to say that a trampoline is one of the few things that can simulate the magnitudes of pressure that we deal with in alpine skiing. And you get on there, and it's an incredible workout, because for what little you reach out with your legs, you get just as much back and then some. So you can play around with, you know, extension and creating energy by coming down onto the surface of the deck, and then you can deal with that energy by retracting your legs and reaching back over to the side. It can teach you how to deal with those forces coming off the skis and moving them to the other side of the turn, for example. It's just got so many great dynamics going for it that are directly related to skiing. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see my thing tonight with the trampoline that's involved, but you may not. So in the event that you can't, hopefully we can talk about that next week or when you are able to see it. But full on with the tramp, try to take your poles, put a little protector on the bottom, and then take your poles onto the tramp, and that will give you the simulation of using poles and making pole touches while you're bouncing back and forth and side to side.
Hey Candace, one last question and then we're going to switch to the next video. What is the name of your 5th exercise?
I believe it was the lateral hops and tuck jump.
Thank you for that. So great questions, you guys. Awesome conversation. And we're going to switch to our next presenter. I think we're going to have to check in with Josh's videos next week, because I really think that they need to be seen live with him present. And so with that, in regards to that, we'll go to Greg. And Greg, if you're on the line from the Northeast Kingdom, and if anybody in this audience here knows where the Northeast Kingdom is in Vermont, it's up there. And wireless is very spotty, but I think I heard his chuckle. So, hey, Greg, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Glad to be speaking to you all. And my name is Greg Fatigate. I'm a member of the AASI education staff. I've been on the ed staff since 2007. And my video today is going to be, my video and fitness offering is based on one of my favorite summertime activities, and that is mountain biking. And, you know, with this, I don't want to just make this sound as though the only way to attain the things I'm talking about is through mountain biking, because frankly, cycling of any type will achieve the same ends that I'm trying to highlight in the video.
Hi, my name is Greg Fatigate. I'm a member of the AASI Eastern Division education staff and also a member of the AASI Eastern team. What I hope to do today is show you a few things on your mountain bike that will help to get in shape for the season and also solidify your understanding of the snowboard fundamentals and skiing fundamentals.
This webinar series is about remaining physically fit going into the winter. However, no matter what, each season getting back on boards or skis, I always hear the same kind of comments come out. Something like, "This is so weird," when someone takes their first runs. Mountain biking and activities like mountain biking are something I prefer because it not only builds muscle endurance, but also keeps my brain to body connection good and sharp. I prefer mountain biking in the non-winter seasons as a means to remain strong and agile for the physical demands of the winter season. Most obviously trail riding, which is my primary mountain biking pleasure. That keeps me in good cardio shape and keeps my quads good and strong. Fundamentally, trail riding is quite similar to both skiing and snowboarding. Both require a base set of alignments of the rider's body over the equipment. With good control of my center mass to the base of support, I am capable to make effective body movements to get specific performances from the equipment, whether it be on a board or on a bike. From a strength building standpoint, obviously I get a lot of cardio from mountain biking. But sometimes it's just endurance riding up a long hill, and other times it's with the quick bursts of energy to get through tough areas with steeper uphill inclines. What you see here while turning may look like something to do with inclination and angulation. Of all the crossover fundamental aspects between the two activities, this is the one that really hits it home. Getting up and over obstacles is a full body workout on a mountain bike. But beyond all that, the most important reason to get on my bike in the summer is for all this. It's for all the beautiful scenic views. It's for all the exciting times with my friends. And it's for all the adventures that mountain biking takes me to. It's a good time, and I hope to see you out there in the summer.
Greg, that was a lot of fun to watch. That was a lot of fun to watch. I'm going to give you some personal anecdote that I shared with some people. I went mountain biking around where I am in near Bromley, and I really have no experience going up work roads and coming down them. And I was going probably, I don't know, 5 miles an hour going down and trying to change directions, and I ended up just tipping over. So I think I think in addition to all the fundamentals, there's also that balance issue and just negotiating terrain. And I think, do you want to speak to that aspect of it, of how being on a mountain bike kind of helps you with your snow sports and just negotiating what's coming underneath you?
Oh, I'd be glad to. One of the parts of it is also terrain selection, and there's a very interesting dynamic between the two sports, snowboarding, skiing, and mountain biking, and that is if I'm biking a slope, it's like a challenging slope on a bike is probably a green circle slope on your skis. So sometimes people will maybe go to their local ski mountain and ride down one of the ski trails with no snow on it, and they go on a blue square trail, and it's terrifying. I wouldn't do it. But as far as remaining balanced and everything, and some of those crossover things, one of the things that, and I spoke to it quickly at the beginning of the video, is just keeping my mind to body connection sharp. And so that is to stay as terrain approaches me, or as it approaches when we're biking, the ability to see that and make appropriate reactions, appropriate body movements, that is, to affect how the bike is going to react when it maybe interacts with a rock or something. That's probably, of all the things, outside of the fact that it keeps me strong, keeps the quads strong, keeps the cardio up, that's probably the most beneficial thing. Does that answer the question? I don't know if it does.
No, it definitely does. And my fitness brain is thinking, if I correlate the two, being on a mountain bike and being on skis, I know that I've got to be looking ahead. And as I'm looking ahead, my brain is communicating with my muscles and my joints and all those receptors that actually Marjorie was talking about at the beginning of this series, about seeing where we are in space and reacting to what's coming, and allows our muscles to respond. And so, you may not think about the value, like mountain biking might not be your thing, but if you think about the correlation between that reaction time and developing reaction time, I think it's one of those things that's very, very useful for us as athletes in a sport that involves going downhill, on terrain that's varying all the time. We're not tennis players on a flat surface that doesn't move, right? We're on surfaces that use gravity and completely changing. It's crazy. All right, so here's a question. How should I get started mountain biking safely?
Oh, that's an excellent question, and thank you for that. The best thing to do is take the word mountain away from the activity and just look at it from biking. There are so many rail trails around that will get all of the same ends that you'll get from mountain biking. You still have to look ahead. You're still going to get a great cardio workout, and you're still going to get good strong legs from it. And it's also probably not going to be something that's going to end tragically. And so it's as far as getting into it goes, it's that. Likewise, a quick Google search will often, if you Google mountain biking or mountain bike sales or what's a mountain bike cost, it's really easy to get scared off by a $4,000 mountain bike, especially when it's October and we're looking at big purchases for ski and snowboard equipment. It's important to note that you can get a perfectly suitable bike that can handle just about anything for around $600. So that would be one of the other things to bear in mind. There's bike swaps and all that. All the same tactics we take to get ski and snowboard equipment correlates over to biking. But as far as it goes, your first experience, if we're looking to get into mountain biking, it doesn't have to be mountain biking right off the bat. Rail trails are great, dirt roads are great, and then one of the great things, and this might just be my spoils up in northern Vermont. I haven't gone too far, especially this summer, but definitely up in northern Vermont, and I know down in southern Vermont. And when I see Facebook posts from our AASI membership in Pennsylvania, I think it's going on down there too. There's so much mountain bike trails out there now that are being developed that are beginner friendly, because they're seeing things the same way we're seeing in the winter, and that is you've got to be able to create trail networks and experiences that are suitable to the beginner audience if you want to have traction.
So that brings up a question about fat biking. Do you have an opinion about fat biking, fat tire biking?
As far as like what it's like, or I don't have much of an opinion, only because I find it difficult to break away from my snowboard in the winter to go out and fat bike. Yes. I have never fat biked in my whole life. I do think from the way it's described to me, it's described as soft and slow. That's how the bike interacts to the snow and the surface, which is actually a very appealing way for me to ride. And it does appear to be a great way to keep up your cardio and your leg strength in the winter when the snow is marginal. But of course, you know, as anyone in northern Vermont will tell you, the snow is never marginal. So that's why I have getting on a fat bike in the winter.
Right. Well, it is a way that some of the cross-country areas are staying in business, is by introducing those kinds of bikes on their trails so that they can open up during those marginal snow years. We had one of those down here in southern Vermont. Can you expand on how mountain biking relates to the fundamentals of skiing and snowboarding?
Absolutely. And I don't want to go and make too many deep conceptual leaps here. There is one in particular that crosses over almost spot on, and that is regulate the magnitude of pressure created through the equipment to surface interaction. On my bike, that's me moving over my rear wheel as I approach to go over a rock. It's me shifting my center mass up towards my front wheel as I crest the rock to being able to bring my back tire up and over. And without going through the rest of that process, there's a lot of center mass moving forward and back on the bike to get the exact same performance that we get, or the exact same outcome, I guess, between your winter equipment and the snow surface. As far as controlling tilt through inclination and angulation, I don't want to make a deep conceptual leap there, but you can see when in my section of cranking arcs, when I tip my body over, across the bike, I turn, especially at a higher speed. If I'm just like, if you're going to carve, it's really hard to carve a deep carved arc at slow speed. Same with on a bike, it's hard to make a long kind of arced out, leaned over turn at slow speed on your bike. So that crosses over quite a lot as well. And if forgive me, I'm gonna stop at both of those too, because I think, over some beer at the end of a ride, I think we could very easily compare the other fundamentals. On snowboard, I'm looking at 4 others, and on the alpine, I'm looking at 3 others. Certainly, we could probably make a conceptual leap to make a comparison between the two. But I think those two that I just highlighted probably the most crossover, especially as I began with regulating magnitude of pressure through the surface interaction.
Greg, I can also throw out the the turning the legs underneath a disciplined and stable upper body as something, especially when you're going around a tight curve. Would you agree with that?
I would, because if I'm cranking through, especially like a nice sloping berm turn where I've leaned over the bike, I'm on a nice in-sloped berm. I'm looking around through through the entirety of the turn. My feet are gripped on the pedals, and they are not necessarily. I'm not pivoting my legs, as I believe you bring up in the fundamental, but my feet are gripped on the pedals, and because I'm looking and leaning through the turn, there is a feeling of leg rotation, although I'm not trying to rotate my legs because I don't want my feet to slip on the pedals. But I can feel a tension in there.
Right. So maybe it's better to say that there is a separation between what your upper torso is doing and what your legs are having to do, and certainly needing to have absolute stability in your core to keep it all together.
Oh yeah.
So here's a question on what's the best way to develop uphill strength mountain biking? I feel like I fade on the uphill.
My take is to try to avoid getting into your easiest gear, especially if you have 2 gears up front. Oftentimes people go into the smallest gear up front and their largest gear in the back. That's called the granny gear. And that doesn't really, you end up spinning out of that gear so quickly that there's never any strength necessarily developed. I would recommend, if you're looking to train specifically to not fade out as you go up a climb, I would move my training for that to a lesser climb and put myself into a slightly harder gear than I typically would be in climbing, almost to where you're feeling some resistance through your legs. Maybe every once in a while you have to stand up to stand up to pedal. Not so much that you're doing it constantly, but maybe once in a while. And if you can gain some resistance from your pedal stroke, that will help to address the question there. It's a really good question.
So in regards to that, is there, and this is kind of a technical question relative to bikes themselves, is there a relationship between like spinning out with your back tire if you're in too low of a gear, you're going uphill, and when you're on a road bike, you could just get out of the saddle and use all your body weight to power up a hill. But sometimes on a mountain bike, if it's too high of a hill, too steep of a hill, the back tire just spins out. So how do you fix that?
My recommendation there would be to get into a slightly harder gear, maybe one click down. And it's okay to stand up out of your saddle when you're climbing up a hill. It's not necessarily easy to stay up out of the saddle, or the bike seat, that is. Not easy to stay up and out of that for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
But if you're in a slightly more traction-based gear, which is something that's going to give you some resistance, a little bit of a harder gear, you get up out of your seat and you get some good solid down pressure on your pedal crank. That'll help to alleviate the spin out that you're talking about. However, you will get, if you're standing up out of your seat and you're in too easy of a gear, that's where you're going to get that spin out. So if you're getting spin out when you stand up out of your seat, my recommendation is get into 1 or 2 gears slightly with a little bit more resistance.
That makes total sense. So, Greg, one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up for tonight. And that is there anything besides mountain biking that you think is important to do for training, specifically for snowboarding?
That almost would open my Pandora's box on an opinion I have. And this is a Greg Fatigate op-ed. The snowboard's gotta hold on tight for these. I don't actively train for snowboarding. I like to go out and ride my bike. I like to stay strong that way. I actually go to a CrossFit gym, just as Candace does. And I find when I train specifically for snowboarding, I end up being so specific that I'm not as versatile. That said, some other activities I like to do, and I'm not so naive as to say that snowboard or mountain biking and the CrossFit gym I go to don't help me be prepared for the winter season. I am aware of that. Some of the other things, skateboarding is an amazing thing to do. And I'm 44 now, and falling hurts on a skateboard. There are definitely ways to not skateboard and get hurt, or there's ways to skateboard and not get hurt. That's entirely possible. I also, the really sneaky one that I think everyone is happy to do is just hiking. And especially my least favorite part of hiking, which is going downhill, is probably for getting a, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong here, Sue, I believe as you're going downhill, you're getting an isometric contraction in your hamstrings, or you're getting some kind of something's happening that's good for your hamstrings as you're going downhill. I'm not going to use scientific words because I'm not good with them. But I think of all the things that you can do that's recreation based, that will prepare us for the winter. I think that's an excellent one.
You're right. Going uphill, hiking, and you can power walk uphill, run uphill, and running downhill is really good training for skiing and snowboarding. Awesome. So, Greg, thank you so much for tuning in from wherever you are. And I'm so happy that we're able to hear your voice at the very least. Hey gang, so unfortunately we weren't able to show you Josh's videos, but they're worth the wait. And so I'm gonna ask everybody to schedule in a little extra time for us next week, because we're gonna load up heavily. We're gonna have a session on program design. We're gonna have a session on nutrition and meal planning. And then we're also going to have the session on agility. And I think it's going to be well worth your while. So we've gone a little long on previous evenings. Tonight is a little bit short, so enjoy your family. Have a nice dinner, and please look for the link and survey questions, and we will see you again next week. And I hope you've had a great evening. Thanks to our contributors, Candace, Josh, and Greg, and everybody behind the scenes. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week, which is our last week. I'm kind of sad a little bit, but after that is snow, so that's a good thing. All right, guys, have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.